Have you ever felt like you're standing at the edge of a cliff, watching someone struggle against waves that are about to pull them under, while knowing you're the only one who can swim? Not because you're indifferent, but because fear has wrapped itself around you like chains, freezing your limbs, silencing your instincts. Sometimes, the wounds buried deepest don't just scar us, they imprison us. They push us into the shadows where the most brilliant parts of ourselves remain locked away, like raw gems waiting for the courage to shine. This is the story of Emma Brooks, a woman who pushed a janitor's cart through sterile hallways long after midnight, yet carried within her a mind capable of reshaping the future of artificial intelligence. A woman who once stood on the edge of greatness, until betrayal shattered everything. And a woman whose anonymous act of defiance would begin a quiet revolution, healing not just her own brokenness, but another's soul teetering on the brink. The night shift at Orion Tech always began the same way. At exactly 9:00 p.m., Emma Brooks swiped her badge at the security checkpoint, slipped through the gleaming glass doors, and melted into the silence like a ghost reclaiming familiar ground. The rhythmic squeak of her cleaning cart echoed down marble corridors, a lonely soundtrack to thoughts she never dared say out loud. To outsiders, Orion was a temple of innovation, one of Chicago's most prestigious tech giants, but to Emma, it was a cold, mechanical maze where her true self had been buried, a place where no one looked at her long enough to see the person behind the uniform, a place where invisibility had become both protection and punishment. She was 32, though the constant exhaustion and faint blue shadows beneath her eyes made her seem older. Every step she took was practiced, quiet, not because she lacked strength, but because she had learned that survival often meant taking up less space. She had become fluent in vanishing, an expert in being unseen by design. 42nd floor again tonight, Emma? Asked Stanley, the night security guard, his voice familiar and kind. Yes, she replied with a small nod, offering the faintest of smiles, one that never reached her eyes. Big board meeting tomorrow. They'll want everything looking spotless. What Stanley didn't know, what no one at Orion had even a hint of, was that Emma Brooks had once been someone people in this building would have lined up to meet. 5 years ago, she was a rising star in AI development, a neural network architect whose theories were considered so revolutionary, some believed she might lead a new era of human-computer symbiosis. She spoke at elite conferences, landed massive research grants. Her algorithms were valued in the billions. She was that Emma Brooks, until the day it all collapsed. As she guided her cart into the executive elevator, memories she'd tried so hard to suppress crept back in like smoke under a closed door. She remembered keynote speeches in front of captivated audiences, letters of recommendation from globally respected minds, late nights in labs filled with caffeine and ambition. She remembered believing she was building something important, something that mattered. And then came the accusation: intellectual theft. A single claim, unsupported, anonymous, was all it took to unravel her entire career. Her reputation was gutted overnight. No one asked for her side. No one stood by her. The industry turned away, quietly and efficiently, as if she had never existed. The elevator dinged open, drawing her back to the present. She stepped onto the 42nd floor, the command center of Orion Tech. It was here that multi-million-dollar strategies were forged and where the future of the company was shaped behind glass walls and polished conference tables. Emma moved like smoke through the floor, emptying trash cans, wiping down untouched surfaces, always one step outside the edges of vision. People rarely noticed her, but that invisibility, once suffocating, had become her shield. They spoke freely around her, trusting that the cleaning lady wasn't really listening. But Emma always listened. And tonight, she heard something different. As she neared the main boardroom, sharp voices spilled through the glass. The tone was tense, clipped. "The AI system is a disaster," barked a man inside. "We've got 2 weeks until the board meeting, and what we have looks like a glorified prototype at best." Emma glanced inside. Lucas Hale, Orion's young CEO, stood near the head of the table, his fingers raking through his dark, tousled hair. At 33, he bore the impossible weight of his late father's legacy, a legacy built on consistency and control. Lucas had a refined presence, the kind that made headlines, but in his eyes, Emma saw something deeper. An exhaustion she knew all too well. The fatigue of someone trying to keep something from falling apart. "We've gone over this, Howard," Lucas replied, facing off with an older man. "The old architecture doesn't work. We need a new direction." Howard Kingston, former CTO, now a senior advisor, let out a contemptuous chuckle. "New doesn't mean stable, Lucas. Your father built this company on trust and precision, not risky experiments." Emma stood just outside, silent, blending into the wall as always. But something inside her stirred. Lucas's words, his struggle, they weren't unfamiliar. They echoed the battles she once fought against men like Howard. She knew what it meant to have a vision no one else could see and to be dismissed for daring to imagine more. And in that moment, something unexpected happened. She felt the faintest spark of herself come alive. Not the janitor, not the shadow, the innovator. Emma stepped quietly into the room to empty the trash, murmuring an apology no one heard. But her ears were tuned to every word. "Project Aurora is the future," Lucas insisted. "If we don't solve these integration issues, there won't be a future for Orion Tech." Howard's reply was sharp, smug. "Then maybe this company needs new leadership. The board has already begun questioning your competence." Emma's hand froze over a crumpled printout. She glanced down. The code. She knew it. Every symbol, every pattern. And in seconds she saw it. A recursive error deep within the neural design, a small flaw with massive consequences, one that would create a cascade of corrupted data across every module. She could fix it, not maybe, not later, right now. But fixing it meant being seen, meant risking everything again, meant stepping into the light. That night, in a modest apartment on the north side of Chicago, Emma sat alone at her desk, bathed in the pale blue glow of her laptop. The room was sparse, cold, designed for silence. There were no photos, no awards, no remnants of the person she used to be, only tall stacks of books, mostly technical, arranged with surgical precision. It wasn't a home. It was a bunker. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, and inside an old voice screamed. She had spent 5 years shrinking, surviving in silence. But now, that silence felt like suffocation. Aurora wasn't just another failing project. It was a symbol of innovation, of what could be, of who she could still be. "Just this once," she whispered. No names, no faces, just the code. She opened a new email, an alias, anonymous. And then she began to type. Line after line poured out, clean and sure, like she'd never stopped. The architecture restructured, the recursion corrected, the pathways optimized. It wasn't just a fix, it was a reinvention. When she finished, she signed the email with a single word, life, and with one trembling breath, she hit send. "Just this once," she whispered, half a promise, half a plea. Anonymous, no one will ever know. She created a new email account, no identifiers, no names. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, guided by instincts that had been dormant but never forgotten. Within an hour, she had mapped out a full architectural overhaul of Aurora's neural network and detailed a fix so precise it read more like poetry than code. She signed the email with a single word: light. And with a breath so deep it shook her chest, she clicked send. Lucas Hale stared at his monitor, reading the anonymous email for the 5th time. It had arrived at 2:37 a.m., sent from an untraceable address. But the content, it was different. Extraordinary. "Who are you?" he murmured into the silence of his office, the blue light from the screen casting tired shadows beneath his eyes. The solution wasn't just technically sound, it was beautiful. A complete reimagining of Aurora's architecture that resolved every integration failure his engineering team had spent weeks battling. Lucas had read enough code in his life to recognize genius when he saw it, but that wasn't the question. The question was, could he trust it? Industrial sabotage was a real possibility, a trap laid by a competitor, and with the board meeting fast approaching, Howard Kingston had been quietly undermining him for weeks. Everyone knew, though no one dared say it out loud, Lucas Hale was not his father, and Orion was suffering because of it. For a long, uncertain moment, he weighed caution against desperation. Then, as dawn crept over the Chicago skyline, Lucas forwarded the email to his lead developer with a simple directive: implement immediately. "This is our buzzer beater," he told her, using sports metaphors to mask the ache in his chest. Because what he really felt wasn't strategy. It was hope. 2 days later, Emma pushed her car down the now familiar hallway outside the main conference room. Her heart thundered beneath her janitor's uniform. Through the glass wall, she saw Lucas standing before the engineering team, his usual reserved demeanor replaced with something rare: excitement. "The new architecture is clocking at 93% efficiency," he announced, voice charged with energy. "That's a 41% performance gain, overnight." Emma lowered her eyes, pretending to focus on a trash bin, but inside, a warmth spread through her chest, a long-forgotten feeling. Pride. For the first time in 5 years, her work was changing something, making something better, even if no one knew it was hers. Around the table, developers murmured in disbelief. "Who the hell is Light?" someone asked. "We should hire them yesterday." That night, alone in her apartment, Emma did something she hadn't done in years. She smiled at her reflection. The woman staring back was still cloaked in shadow, but something had shifted. In her eyes was a glimmer of the fire she thought had gone out forever. She sat at her laptop and drafted another message, this time to solve the secondary issues she anticipated from the initial update. Her fingers moved effortlessly, as if her body remembered the rhythm of a life she'd once lived. And so a strange relationship began. Each night, Emma observed Aurora's struggles from behind the scenes as she cleaned. She'd scan whiteboards scribbled with frantic notes, catch glimpses of overlooked code snippets on idle screens, and every night, Light sent another answer. New segments of code, refined models, creative solutions built on logic and experience. To Lucas, the emails became lifelines. He began staying late, just in case another message came through while he was still at his desk. Sometimes they did, arriving with uncanny timing that made him wonder if he was being watched. His curiosity grew into obsession. He analyzed sentence patterns, scoured security footage, even deployed network sniffers across company servers. But every trail disappeared into a web of sophisticated proxies. Meanwhile, Emma grew bolder. Her messages evolved from technical suggestions to strategic guidance, insights about market positioning, user adaptation curves, even long-term viability. What surprised her most wasn't how much she still knew. It was how much Lucas listened. He implemented her suggestions. He credited the anonymous advisor during meetings. He defended the ideas, even when senior staff raised questions. But Howard Kingston, him, the man who had once dismantled her life, began to circle. He watched the development team with sharpened eyes. His questions became more pointed, more specific. Emma could feel it. The storm was coming. One late afternoon, while cleaning the executive restroom, Emma heard a voice she instantly recognized. Howard, speaking through a cracked door, his tone low but razor-sharp. The recent changes to Aurora's architecture are reckless. Hale's taking orders from an unknown source. The security risk is plain as day. Emma froze, blood draining from her face. A beat of silence, then Howard continued. Yes, I think it's time we take this to the board. This company can't afford to gamble under his leadership. That night, Emma's message to Lucas carried a tone she hadn't used before. Urgency. Her subject line read, "Be ready." Inside, your anonymous advisor might soon become a liability. Be prepared to defend the decisions you've made. Lucas's reply came quickly and stopped her cold. I stand by every change we've made. Light, whoever you are, you've done more for this company in 2 weeks than most have in years. I won't let that be buried. A strange heat rose in her chest. Recognition, trust. For the first time in forever, her work didn't just exist. It mattered. One evening, while Emma quietly cleaned Lucas's office, he returned unexpectedly. "Oh, sorry," he said, genuinely surprised. "Didn't know you were still here." Emma avoided eye contact, panic briefly spiking. "Almost done, sir." Lucas dropped into his chair with a heavy sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Take your time." An awkward silence settled. Emma focused on wiping the desk, willing her hands to stay steady. As she turned to leave, his voice caught her. "Do you ever feel like you're just sinking? Like everyone's watching, waiting for you to fail?" She stopped, not facing him. The question hit her somewhere raw. "Yes," she said quietly, startled by her own honesty. Lucas chuckled, bitter and tired. "Sorry, I shouldn't unload on the janitorial staff." "Bad days happen," she replied softly, "even to CEOs." Their eyes met, briefly but deeply. In that moment, she saw something real in his face. Not power, not pride, but vulnerability. And perhaps recognition. "You didn't tell me your name," he said as she reached the door. "Ma," she replied, barely louder than a whisper. "Thank you, Emma," he said, "for listening." That night, her email wasn't just lines of code. It was a message of quiet defiance, of standing firm when the winds turned against you, of being seen. Lucas responded within the hour. "I need to meet you. Aurora launches in 3 weeks. We're making progress, but the board still doubts me. I can't do this alone anymore. I need a real ally, not just a voice in the dark." Emma stared at those words until sunrise. But she didn't reply, because stepping out of the dark would mean confronting everything: humiliation, loss, the scars she still carried, and she didn't know if she was strong enough to live it all again. The next day, the air inside Orion Tech shifted. Security was tighter. Developer access to Aurora's core was suddenly revoked, citing a new security protocol. Howard Kingston appeared with a thick folder in hand, striding into the boardroom like a man who already knew the outcome. Emma mopped the marble floors with shaking hands. Through the glass, she saw Lucas standing before a group of executives, trying to defend himself. His gestures were sharp, impassioned. Howard loomed nearby, lips curled into a smug smile. The vultures had arrived, and Emma knew this was it. The reckoning had begun. "These changes work," Lucas said, voice thick with frustration but still steady. "We're weeks ahead of schedule. Aurora's performance exceeds every original benchmark." "Results without protocol are dangerous," Howard shot back. "Your father understood that. He built this company through measured innovation, not reckless experimentation. and you've handed over the future of Orion to an anonymous hacker." That word, hacker, landed like a slap. Emma flinched behind the wall of glass, her heart sinking. Is that how they see me? Not a creator, but a threat. "Light is not a hacker," Lucas said firmly, his tone sharp with conviction. "Every single contribution improved Aurora. There's no evidence of any breach." "Then who is Light?" Howard's voice hardened, sharp as ice. "If there's such a benefit to Orion, why hide? What are they so afraid we'll discover?" Lucas had no answer, and in that silence, Emma could feel it, the subtle shifting of consensus within the boardroom. A judgment forming before the verdict had even been spoken. She didn't wait to hear more. Emma left the executive floor without finishing her shift, her thoughts spinning like a storm. Howard's words echoed through her mind, not just what he said, but how he said it, the familiarity of his language, the way he described the architecture. It was too precise, too intimate, like someone who had once known exactly what she built. Down in Orion's basement archives, the cold air bit into her skin as she rifled through boxes of old research documentation. Her janitor's keycard opened nearly every door. She scanned folder after folder, chasing ghosts from 5 years ago, the year her life was dismantled. And at 3:47 a.m., she found it. The algorithms Howard had accused of being risky and unauthorized in Aurora were the exact same innovations she had once developed, the ones she was accused of stealing, the ones that had made her career and then ended it. Worse yet, a confidential document revealed that Howard Kingston had been an anonymous reviewer on the research grant panel that first questioned her integrity. He had initiated the investigation that ended her career. The reason? Buried deep within a competitive strategy memo, Howard had been working on a parallel product. If her system succeeded, his legacy and his ambitions would collapse. He hadn't just destroyed her. He did it to protect himself. When the sun rose, Emma returned to her apartment, numb. She didn't just uncover the truth of her own fall. She saw a dangerous pattern repeating. Howard was playing the same game again, only this time Lucas was the target. And part of her, the part that was still bitter and scarred, wanted to let it happen. Let Lucas fall. Let him feel what she once felt. But another part, the one that had compelled her to send that first email, couldn't allow it. Because Lucas Hale wasn't like the others. He had listened. He had believed in unseen talent. He had chosen vision over fear. She spent the entire day collecting evidence, cross-referencing internal documents, tracing code histories, printing archived messages. She assembled it all into an airtight case. Howard hadn't just sabotaged one mind. He'd been burying brilliance for years to preserve a fragile throne. That night, when she arrived at Orion, something was off. The building was quieter than usual. On the executive floor, Lucas was packing up his office. "They've asked me to step down," he said without looking up, his voice heavy and hollow. "Effective tomorrow." Emma stood frozen at the threshold. The world she had helped rebuild was unraveling before her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The words drifted, weightless. Lucas shrugged, the emptiness in his gaze hiding a deeper wound. 5 years, trying to honor my father's legacy, trying to prove I belong, and it all ends because I trusted someone I've never even met. He laughed, bitter and sharp. Irony is, Light was right. The demo yesterday was flawless, not a single error. Emma swallowed, steadying her voice. What happens to Aurora now? Howard takes over as interim CEO. The board approved it unanimously. He'll roll back all the changes, revert to the original model. We'll lose months, maybe years. But performance was never the issue. This was never about Aurora's potential. It was about control. about whose vision gets to shape Orion's future. He sighed. Howard's always wanted my father's company. Now he has it. Mr. Hale, Emma began, then faltered. The weight of what she was about to do threatened to crush her. Just Lucas, he interrupted, finally meeting her eyes. You're one of the few steady things around here, Emma. Night after night, you keep this place running, while the rest of us upstairs keep making messes. There's something noble in that. Her throat tightened, not from kindness, but from the unbearable pressure of 5 years of silence, of hiding, of swallowing who she was. Sometimes, she murmured, the ones who seem invisible are just waiting for the right moment to be seen. Lucas looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his eyes changed. That's profound. Their eyes held for a breath too long. It was dangerous. It was real. I should go, Emma said. Good night, Lucas, and good luck. That night, she didn't write any code. Instead, she sat on the floor of her apartment, surrounded by stacks of old research papers, legal documents, and confidential records pulled from Orion's archive. On her laptop screen was an unsent email, not to Lucas, but to the entire Orion board. Attached, everything. The truth. One click. Just one click would pull her out of the shadows, expose her to scrutiny, humiliation, even legal retribution. Was Lucas worth that? Was she? Her finger hovered over the mouse. Outside, the city lights blurred behind a film of unshed tears. For 5 years, she had survived in silence. But surviving was not the same as living. This wasn't about Lucas anymore. This was about Emma. Did she deserve to reclaim her voice, her name, her place in the world? As the first light of dawn broke across the skyline, her eyes were red, but her mind was clear. The email remained unsent. A different decision had been made. The board meeting to formalize Lucas's resignation was set for 10 o'clock IME, and Emma would be there. Not as light, not as a janitor, but as herself. She showered, dressed carefully, a blue blouse and black slacks, clothes from a life she hadn't dared touch in years. The woman in the mirror wasn't the prodigy she once was, nor was she the shadow who'd wandered Orion's halls at night. She was something new, someone forged in failure and rebuilt with quiet resilience. She entered the building through the front, moving with the morning crowd. Her ID badge still worked. She rode the main elevator. Floor 44 lit up. Her last time in that elevator, she had been accused of betrayal. She walked in a scientist. She walked out a ghost. Now she was walking back as something else entirely. The executive floor gleamed in cold light. Through the glass, the boardroom was already full. Howard stood at the head of the table, his smile restrained but triumphant. Lucas hadn't arrived yet. Emma waited in the corner, heart pounding like a war drum. Then she saw him. Lucas stepped out of the elevator, polished, calm, but Emma saw the exhaustion pulling at his shoulders. When their eyes met, he paused, confused. She wasn't in her uniform. She wasn't supposed to be here. "Mr. Hale," she said softly as he passed, "before you go in, there's something I need to say." He stopped, startled by the gravity in her voice. "Emma, what are you doing here?" "To tell the truth. About Aurora, about Howard Kingston, and about light." Recognition hit him like a wave, then shock. "It's you," he whispered, disbelief thick in his voice. Before she could reply, Howard called from the doorway. "Lucas, everyone's waiting. No need to delay the inevitable." Lucas looked back at her, eyes searching. "I'll explain everything," she said. "But first, I need to ask you something." A pause, the last moment before the jump. "You believe me?" Lucas stared at her, the world narrowing to her eyes. Then, slowly, he nodded. I don't know why, but yes, I do. Then come with me, Emma said, standing taller. And no matter what I say in there, don't react. Let me lead. They walked in together. The boardroom, expecting the fall of William Hale's son, was about to witness something else entirely. The resurrection of Emma Brooks, and the final reckoning of Howard Kingston. I will, Emma said clearly, her voice cutting through the air like a bell. She stepped into the center aisle. Every head turned. Lucas froze at the podium, the microphone catching his stunned whisper. Emma. But she didn't stop. Her steps were calm, eyes steady. I'm Emma Brooks, she declared. And I'm light. The boardroom erupted in whispers and gasps. Howard shot up from his seat. This is absurd. She's a janitor. Yes, Emma replied, unshaken. I've cleaned these halls for 3 years, because 5 years ago, my career was destroyed by an accusation of plagiarism based on a review from an anonymous evaluator. That person was Howard Kingston. The room fell into a stunned, suffocating silence. Lies, Howard barked, his voice rising. She's delusional. But Emma didn't flinch. She walked up to the podium, calm and deliberate. The solutions I've contributed to Aurora are based on the exact neural architecture I developed 5 years ago. The same principles Howard once condemned as flawed, and now they're running flawlessly. She placed a USB drive on the podium. Inside this, she said firmly, is everything. The original research, anonymous review documents written in Howard's exact phrasing, and a patent filing for a competing technology he submitted the moment he realized I was ahead. She took a deep breath. All of it proves Howard Kingston systematically dismantled my career to protect his own legacy, and now he's doing the same thing to Lucas. Howard's face drained of color. It was as if someone had pulled the plug on his very blood. The board doesn't need to entertain wild accusations from a janitor, he snapped, desperate to regain control. Maybe not, Lucas spoke up, a new strength rising in his voice. But they will look at the evidence, and they'll ask themselves why our senior advisor has been so violently opposed to the only changes that have actually worked. The board chair stood, stern and composed. This meeting is adjourned for 48 hours pending internal investigation of these claims. The entire room buzzed in disbelief. People stood. Conversations swelled. As the crowd slowly emptied, Lucas turned to Emma, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. She was trembling slightly, the weight of the moment finally catching up to her. It was you, he whispered. You were light all along. Why didn't you tell me? Emma blinked away the tears welling in her eyes. Because the world already took everything from me once. I wasn't sure I could survive losing it again. Lucas exhaled, still trying to piece everything together. You didn't just fix the code. You saw possibilities none of us even dreamed of. Emma smiled softly. I saw someone drowning, and I remembered. I knew how to swim. 2 weeks later, the investigation concluded. Howard Kingston was forced to resign, disgraced by undeniable evidence. Orientech issued a public statement, reinstating Emma Brooks's reputation, acknowledging that the original accusations had been deeply flawed and wrong. Lucas remained CEO, but now he carried something deeper, an earned confidence, a leadership not of legacy, but of character. Emma sat at a small cafe across the street from Orion's towering glass facade. Lucas approached, smiling as he set 2 thick folders on the table between them. The board approved both proposals, he said. You get to choose. Emma opened the first. An offer. Chief Technology Officer. With a salary and autonomy that made her pause. Breathless. She flipped open the second folder. Her voice softened. And this one? A fully funded independent research institute. You'd have complete control, staff, lab, full partnership with Orion. But you'd call the shots. Her fingers grazed the edge of the second file, her eyes lit with purpose. This one, she said quietly. I've been in the dark long enough. I want to build a place that brings others into the light, especially the young researchers who've been told to stay quiet. Lucas nodded. His gaze held a rare gentleness. In space has always been waiting for you, whenever you're ready. Emma smiled. No more night shifts? Lucas chuckled. No more hiding. For either of us. 3 months later, the Emma Brooks Institute for AI Innovation officially opened its doors. It was modest, but filled with light, sunlight pouring through open windows, laughter echoing through glass-walled labs. Young scientists from underrepresented communities filled the space, encouraged to dream louder, think bolder. Emma stood at the center of it all. No longer invisible, no longer afraid. There was a knock at the door. She turned. Lucas stood there, holding a small box. A housewarming gift, he said. Inside, a sleek, elegant desk lamp. Because sometimes, he said with a soft smile, we all need a little light to find our way back to ourselves. Emma placed the lamp gently on her desk, a symbol of everything reclaimed, everything reborn. Thank you, she said, for believing in me when I couldn't. Lucas nodded. You saved me too. You reminded me that innovation takes courage, and I hope I reminded you your voice is always worth hearing. They stood there, surrounded by sunlight. Emma understood now. Her journey from darkness wasn't about returning to who she once was. It was about becoming who she was always meant to be. The grand opening is next week, she said, a quiet smile on her lips. Will you come? Lucas grinned. Not a chance I'd miss it. But you have to promise me something. What's that? No more anonymous emails. From now on, we face the future together in the light. Emma reached out her hand. Lucas took it. Simple gesture, but one that bridged 2 lives. A new beginning, born from truth, resilience, and the courage to rise from ruins. In the light, Emma whispered, where we belong. Thank you for walking beside Emma and Lucas on this journey. If their story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to Moments of Quiet Truth, where we believe that the human spirit is never truly defeated, only waiting to rise. And if you've ever found courage in a moment when you felt you had nothing left, leave a comment below. Your story could be the light someone else needs. Until our next story, be gentle with yourself, and share this one with someone who needs to be reminded of their light.